Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Okay, so
Muhammad Shafir.
Yep, we should be good. Go ahead, start.
All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Saif. I'm from the NJIT MSA, and I will be hosting the event tonight. Before we start, I want to thank you all for attending our event on Islamic investing, hosted by a continuous charity in conjunction with the NJIT MSA and Inter MSA. We will start shortly with a Quran recitation and then begin the rest of the event. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لقد صدق الله رسوله الرؤيا بالحق لتدخلن المسجد الحرام إن شاء الله آمنين محلقين رؤوسكم ومقصرين لا تخافون فعلم ما لم تعلموا فاجعل من دون ذلك فتحا قريبا هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا محمد رسول الله والذين معه أشداء على الكفار رحماء بينهم تراهم ركعا سجدا يبتغون فضلا من الله ورضوانا سيماهم في وجوههم من أثر السجود ذلك مثلهم في التوراة ومثلهم في الإنجيل كزرع أخرج شطأه فآزره فاستغلظ فاستوى على سوقه يعجب الزراع ليغيظ بهم الكفار وعد الله الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات منهم مغفرة وأجرا عظيما صدق الله العظيم. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Brother Muhammad Marawi to start the ACC NJ presentation, followed by a talk by Bakr Asaf and Q&A by Brother Bakr Asaf, and then we'll have a short giveaway for the NJIT MSA. Brother Marawi.
Jazakallah khair. So this will inshallah will be fairly short and brief. In our last event, I kind of gave a little bit more details than I will this time. But my name is Muhammad Mirawi. I'm with the ACC New Jersey's chapter. If you're watching right now, either on Facebook or YouTube, you should know what ACC is by now, if you're on the page. But ACC, A Continuous Charity, is an organization that exists nationally and has sub-chapters in different states of the country. And the point of the organization is to raise or to basically provide interest-free loans for Muslim students pursuing everywhere from undergraduate education to higher education to professional schooling. And these are just some statistics, inshallah, and then we'll just give a couple pointers on how we select applicants for, who is going to receive a loan. And then, inshallah, we'll get straight to the talk. So this won't be long. But ACC nationally has lent so far over $3 million. Well, alhamdulillah, that's amazing. Again, these are the national statistics, not New Jersey statistics. We haven't gotten to the point of loaning $3 million in New Jersey just yet. But bi'idhnillah, that's the goal. We want to keep climbing. They've helped 235 students, and they've gotten over $800,000 in repayment so far. For those who don't know, the way the loan works, there's a contractual agreement between ACC, a continuous charity, and the person who's receiving the loan, the student, or the student or the graduate who's trying to refinance an interest-based loan, because both of those people can apply for loans or refinancing. And it's a contractual agreement that stipulates that obviously there's X amount that's going to be paid back over X period at X specific interval. So it's it's all well documented, and it's contractual, and it's a cycle. The idea is that the money that we get back from those students, inshallah, who are paying back their loans, is going to be used to provide new loans for new applicants or new applicants. Yeah, and so it's a cycle. So far, over $800,000 returned, and that's getting cycled back for new students, inshallah, and over $10 million in interest saved. That's a huge number, alhamdulillah. And that's the point of all of this. It's to prevent the Muslim students from having to compromise their Islamic ideals, even though, alhamdulillah, our respected scholars have given us fatwa, depending on the individual and their circumstances and their context and a bunch of other things. But there are fatwa that have been given to Muslim students to take these loans that have interest. And as we always mention, that's a discussion for the scholars. But alhamdulillah, if we can prevent Muslim students from having to take those loans to begin with, from having to accrue any interest to begin with, that's the gold standard. That's the goal. So alhamdulillah, over $10 million saved so far. That's huge. Very briefly here, I talked a little bit already about how the process works, and so I won't bore you all with the details of that. All the information, by the way, if you have any questions, the ACC website is super easy to use, acceducate.org. It's very straightforward. If you have any questions, all the nitpicky details should be there, inshallah. But how do we select a loan? This is the most important thing. I'm assuming most of our viewers right now are undergraduate students. Not all, because we are streaming this on YouTube as well, on the national page. But this is an event that we're co-hosting with NJIT MSA, so I'm assuming a lot of the people are going to be students. How do we select? When you apply for a loan, how do we determine who gets the loan? Us and ACC National in conjunction. Merit is the most obvious, and we've talked about this in the past. This does not mean that you have to have a 4.0 GPA and a perfect, SAT score or MCAS score or LSAT score or whatever score. It does not mean that. It just means that we're trying to, inshallah, motivate the students, the Muslim students, to excel in their deen and in their dunya both. So we want to encourage like a healthy culture of healthy competition, right? Trying to excel not only in your deen but also in your academics. So merit is taken into account. It is not the single defining factor, of course. I encourage you all to apply for loans, bi'idhnillah, if you meet other criteria. The second is need, and this is a very obvious one, financial need. The next one is community involvement. That's always a good thing to put in the application. And the application can be found online, of course. If you're a New Jersey student, you want to go on ACC New Jersey Chapters website, and I'll show you that, inshallah, at the end of this. But community involvement is always going to help you, inshallah. Islamic scholarship is huge. Like we've said in the past, doesn't mean you have to have a degree. Doesn't mean you need to be studying in some kind of institute or university of Islamic sciences. It just means that you have to just show some sort of structured learning, right? Even if it's with local scholars, local mashayikh in the masjid, taking a weekly class, a bi-weekly class, having a weekly halaqah, etc., etc. Just some demonstration of effort that's being put in not only in your academics, but also to learn our beautiful religion. And the last thing is location, and this is the biggest one. And after this, inshallah, I'll hopefully wrap it up and we can get to that nice juicy topic that you all are tuning in for, Islamic investing. But the location is basically, it's simple, right? So the areas in the United States of America that provide the most funding to ACC National, that raise the most funds, those communities that raise the most funds to be used, of course, for loans, those communities are going to have more of their applicants receive those funds in the form of loans, right? Because the community is pitching in more money for this effort, then it only makes sense that if we have to divvy up the amount, because we can't give a loan to everybody, although we wish we could, that's the goal. but we can't. So how do we decide who gets the loan? How do we prioritize? Well, those communities that have more funds being raised, namely those states who have chapters that are raising more funds, are going to have more of their applicants receive loans. And so our effort here is to get more awareness about ACC New Jersey chapter in specific, and to hopefully in the long run, right, we want to raise funds so we can provide more loans to our applicants, inshallah. So the goal is get more applicants, get more people talking about ACC New Jersey so they know what it is, and get more funds raised for ACC New Jersey, inshallah. And that's a longer journey. Don't worry, this is not going to be a fundraising event. But I do want to just throw that out there and mention it. Some statistics, inshallah, and we'll wrap up. In New Jersey, the average student loan debt per borrower, this was it was in 2019, it was $33,000. So on the list of averages for the United States of America, the 50 states plus Washington, D.C., there's only 5 states that beat New Jersey in having more student loan debt per borrower. So we're pretty bad when it comes to student loan debt in New Jersey. 33,000 is a very high number. And that's just for undergraduates. When you start talking about graduate students or people going back for higher education or professional schooling, that number quadruples, quintuples, times 10, times 100. It gets out of hand. So that's the talk. I'll go ahead and introduce Beckett Assaf, our speaker for the night, inshallah. Beckett is he studied finance at Fordham University. He's no stranger to the North Jersey Muslim community here. So like I said, he studied finance at Fordham University. He's pursuing executive masters in Islamic finance at Guidance College. He also has been pursuing independent studies for many years now in Islamic sciences and jurisprudence with prominent scholars locally and abroad. And he's former president and emir of Al-Maghrib Institute, Durban, New Jersey chapter. So without further ado, I will go ahead and have Beckett, inshallah, begin the talk whenever he's ready. And Jazakumullah khair.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just debating if it was my connection or someone on the other side, because I keep hearing a lot of breaking up. So I just wanted to make sure that it's not on my end. So I'm not skipping or anything, am I?
No, the video is lagging a tiny bit, but your audio is perfect, at least on my end.
See, like right now you're skipping. And I was trying to say that in the text before we got live, but as long as you guys can hear me, I'm okay. Everyone can hear me clear?
Yep, alhamdulillah, we can hear you clear.
Okay. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa alihi wa ashabi ajma'in. So this is going to be the topic that everybody's looking at right now, especially with how the market crashed in March, April, and then people who were savvy enough to buy hopefully halal stocks, they made quite a good amount of money. Some people well over 100,000 in profit, mashallah, and other people they're still making money, and some people have even currently left their full-time jobs to be investing now in the stock market. So I understand everybody is looking for extra income and like one of my teachers always says, easy money. But I want to remind you guys some very, very important points. Never think that anything comes very easy. Where you see people doing well, alhamdulillah, there's things that you also don't know about those people of how much money they lost as well. Anytime you're investing, you remember that there's a risk, especially if it's in a halal investment. Nothing comes easy. Never forget that. So if you're looking for a cop-out way and you know what, I'm bored during my live lectures in school, I just want to take something to, take a couple $1,000, invest it, and then come out with the miracle $100,000 number at the end of it. That's a fat chance. And so what we would say is that when you're going to start looking at different ways to invest, one of the things that we need to consider is our Islamic principles when investing. One of my teachers said there shouldn't be anything really called Islamic financing. It's just the finance in general is something permissible by default. So it shouldn't be called Islamic financing, but finance or investing. But rather what we look for is the methods to invest in which Allah Azza wa Jal and His Prophet ﷺ have not prohibited. Know this very clear. I said have not prohibited, because the default in all types of investments is that they are halal. I'm going to cover a few options that we have as Muslims today in looking at different ways that we can grow our money. And one of the easiest things to look into is partnership contracts. This is where two people, or at least two people, they come together and they want to start a business, or they have an idea. And there's different ways to be doing this. For example, there's contractual partnerships where people base on their effort and their money, and there's ownership partnerships, which is sometimes also called co-ownership, where one party is allowed to sell their ownership without consent of the other. So it's not restricted, if you will. And if you think about that from just a general point of view, the stock market falls mostly under these ownership partnerships, where you don't have to consult the CEO of the company when you're selling your shares of the business, even though they may be some infinite decimal point of the actual company of ownership. But nonetheless, you don't have to consult with them. If you chose to purchase whatever Tesla at whatever rate you were buying it at, and then you wanted to sell them at a profit, you can. You don't have to consult them. There's also other ways that you can look into investing. And some people, the scholars differed over the different types of partnerships and methods you can use. And you should know these differences of opinion, because they weren't always so clear and straightforward to the average person. For example, franchising, right? Sharakat al-wujuh. This is in Arabic, it's called sharakat al-wujuh, which is a partnership of face, if you will. So in this case, that there's partners who use their credit worthiness as a basis of engaging in business. And you could think about this, for example, if you wanted to open up a Krispy Kreme or a Dunkin' Donuts. And by the way, I'm not telling you to. Every one of these you have to look into and see how permissible, and whether the pork content, this versus that, what it adds up into the overall sales of the business. So Dunkin' Donuts, if you wanted to open up a Dunkin' Donuts, for example, they may have bacon, but believe it or not, there are some franchise locations owned by Jewish people who have put kosher bacon, and they use turkey bacon and beef bacon in place of pork. So there are different ways you can get involved, and the best way you could possibly get involved is in as long as you don't sell, buy, or engage in haram, impermissible things. And so another example of that would be like utilizing a brand. Like, for example, Michael Jordan is very famous, right? And he's usually the person who's standing in front of the Hanes underwear and clothes for men, and he sells because of that. So you're allowed to do this. This is a form of partnership that you can have. Also is product placement. And people who watch movies with me hate this. And this is, for example, if you're advertising a YouTube video, if you're doing something and you add logos on the bottom, or if I decided to drink a soda while I'm speaking to you, somebody may have paid me. If there was, for example, 3 or 4 million people watching the live view, and I was drinking a Coke, that they can pay me to do that. If and Islamically that is okay. So I want you guys to, why am I saying all these different types of ones before I get into the stock market, before we get into options contracts, before we get into the different ways you can look at a 401k and mutual funds and hedge funds, because those are the obvious ones you guys are asking about, because for some reason those are the easiest ones that everybody thinks is the low-hanging fruit. That's where you're going to make money. Everybody seems to be making money, but you need, as a Muslim, to think a little bit outside the box, so that you can recognize that all of these companies you're investing in, they were once these types of companies. They're the ones who are actually forming these other alliances and these other partnerships, so that they can, and then other people are running to invest in them. Another type of investment, for example, is sharakat al-abdan, which is a partnership based on effort. Now, there's not the first one. All the scholars agreed upon it, right? They all said, the majority of scholars accepted that type of partnership, which is the franchising type. And here, the day labor, many of the scholars agreed, but a lot of them didn't agree. What are we talking about as an example? This is where, for example, someone you want to start a landscaping business. I don't know anything about landscaping, but you come up to me and say, hey, Beckett, it's $10,000 to start this business. you put 10,000 in and I'll put the effort in. I know I'm an excellent landscaper. I'm going to be doing this. I'll do the work and we'll split the profit 50-50. All right. And we'll go into ownership 50-50. I'm going to do the work. You're going to finance the business and let's go from there. So the issue we have here, why some of the scholars debated about its permissibility, and you guys in NJIT, you might say, for example, and not to knock on you guys, but some of you may be excellent coders in apps and stuff. And you might say, hey, I have this great app idea, or I just want to be a person who writes apps and I'm going to create a business like that. So I'll do the effort. I'll be the whiz coder, and someone else come and give me $100,000. We'll go into business together and we'll buy and sell and code apps. That's the business. Why some of the scholars debated, like I was alluding to before, is because they said, how with money, how can you measure effort? That money is money, and that's why the ones who didn't like this kind of contract was the Hanbali madhab, and they said because it's too much gharar. And remember, that's one of the areas in our religion where we are told to stay away from, which is extreme ambiguity. We don't know about we can't put some type of finite figure on it. And so that's why a person who's putting in effort, it's like, well, how much effort does it take to equal $100,000? And is it how many hours per week? Is it how much effort you do during those hours? A lot of question marks. But overall, alhamdulillah, the majority of scholars have allowed it, and some with some stipulations, which I'll mention, right? Another type, for example, is a power of attorney, where you delegate others to do your work for you. And this is, if in a certain sense, almost like, well, it's not really the best one, but a good example might be a mutual fund, although you're not giving any type of power of attorney or limited power of attorney or anything like that. But essentially, you're giving them money and you're saying, go invest this, take a percentage of it. And your goal is to make money on that company or on those investments. And last but not least, another form is a limited liability company. And this is where, for example, it implies control in the same sense that, for example, an individual has control over his businesses. It simplifies the fact that the control of the partnership is exercised by all of its partners. And so it limits the liability of what activities well, in this country, at least, a person can be sued for or not sued for, and also for tax purposes on how you make or don't make money. This is fine, but Islamically, we do have a question mark around this practice. Because why? In the United States, a corporation is treated as an individual, as its own company. And so the partners, unless they do something extremely against the law, they cannot break the corporate veil. You could look this up. It's very famous in corporate America, where if they did some negligence, if it's not proven gross negligence, then the company suffers, and that's what they get their own insurance for. But Islamically, we need to, even if you create this type of company to limit liability and for insurance or whatever to practice in this country, you have to recognize that the decisions you make, you will be held accountable for, even though you may be absolved from those, the repercussions of those actions in a courtroom. But Islamically, you are held responsible for those particular contracts. Okay, now in terms of the sales, there's 4 things that I want you to never forget. And if you want to just mentally put them down or type them on your phone, number 1 is trading in haram items. Trading in haram items. Number 2, cheating and lying. Number 3, extreme deceit. And number 4, monopolies in terms of ones that control and need. So Islamically, we're not against monopolies per se, even though the law here may actually be against monopolies. But in our religion, we are not necessarily against them as long as they are not a monopoly on things that the people need. Like, for example, milk. If you own 95% of the milk producing farms in the country, we wouldn't allow that to happen. Or if that is, the government Islamically would limit on what you can and can't sell that milk for, right? Okay. Regarding sales, there are a few ways you can actually sell some items, and this is quite important on how you can go about making money even as a college student. Because I just was told that some young folks that are going to like car auctions, and they're looking for different good deals, and then they're flipping those cars and they're doing well there. So there's a lot of creativity you can do right now, or even online, eBay, or whichever way you can bid on these things. So one of these ways is called a sale, in which the seller names a profit and he marks it up on a cost price analysis. So for example, it cost me $25 and I want $15 in profit, so I'll sell it for $40. This is Islamically fine. But the only problem here, you have to remember the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Kharaju bid-Daman. If you're going to be a person who's going to be looking to purchase and sell items, whether you're, and this is broad, right? Whether you're in a car business, whether you're in the house business, in real estate, although that's extremely high right now. If you're in, what else is there? Buying and selling, anything you could think of, wholesale, in the food, in the supermarket industry, any of these things, as long as you take ownership, okay? As long as you take ownership of the product, then you can sell it for a marked up price. If not, it's seen as a ribawi contract because you're making money on money where you never took ownership of anything. So never forget that. There's a key thing. You have to take ownership. Okay, you need to bold that out or write that as big as you possibly can. And then once you take ownership, you can do another type of sale, which is a deferred payment plan or a cash front payment plan. And those are, and then you can also do a cash upfront with the delivery upfront. So we look at two sides when you're doing a sale. One is the payment and the other is the delivery of the commodity. The most obvious one is where the payment is made in full and the commodity is provided right there at the spot. So immediate payment, immediate delivery. What's an example of this? You go to any store or a supermarket, assuming you paid in cash. You bought a case of bottled water. It's $4. You give them the $4 and you took the case of water. This is immediate payment and immediate delivery. There's also bay' an-nasi'a, which is the payment is deferred and the commodity is delivered. So for example, your utility bills with your electricity, right? You take your electricity now and then you pay for it later. Also, there's another one that's called bay' al-ajal, which is as long as the price is fixed and not at a rate. For example, 0% financing becomes permissible because of the fixed rate. Now, I want to clarify this. This is very important because these are one of the most important, popular questions I get as well as my teachers get. What does that mean that you can take the commodity now and a deferred payment plan? The one we just spoke about right before was a deferred payment. So for example, you give it to me now and I make one payment in full to my utility bill. PSE&G says, hey, you spent $110 worth of gas and electric. Pay this within 30 days. I pay them $110. I say, hey, I don't tell them, hey, can you come up with a payment plan for $5 a month for me? Right? I got to pay it in full. Now, the other one is a deferred payment plan. So when you go into a car dealership, you may get a zero. Right now, holiday season, they do a lot of 0% promotions and offers. So alhamdulillah, that's great. You go in, you may have a $30,000 car. You put $5,000 down. You say $25,000 is the balance I have to pay. Whatever. I'm assuming the fees are in there and whatever. And then you pay that at 0% divided by 48 months, for example. No problem. The problem comes where they come back and say, okay, it's not 0% and it's 2.4% interest. So is that Islamically allowed to take? Now, the obvious thing is somebody might say, well, no, it's not. And the reason is because, it's not 0% interest. There's a key factor here in the sense that we Islamically do not deem everything interest. 99% of it is, but when it is seller financed, I want to make this very clear for those who are in and out, pay attention to this. When it is seller financed, the deferred payment plan can be more than the cash upfront cost. And it doesn't matter how you calculate that, whether you say it's a 1.5% interest rate or not. So let's play a practical example through. I go into a Toyota dealership and Toyota says, hey, you like the Toyota Camry? It's $25,000 and the interest rate is, or it's $30,000 and the interest rate is 1.4%. So you're in the back of your mind, you're like, oh no, that's 1.4% interest. I can't buy the car. Well, here's the thing. If you find out who's financing the car, if it's Toyota Finance who's actually financing it for you and you're making the payment plans to them, believe it or not, Islamically, it is okay to take that deal. Why, you might ask? And the reason is because they are financing it for you, and whether they call it an interest rate or not, the key thing, it needs to be a fixed rate. And even better so, to make this contract so there's no ambiguity in it, you can actually pay up the interest up front, as long as, again, it's being financed by the dealership, the name of the dealership themselves. So where you have to be careful of this is in used car. When you buy a used car, typically they're outsourcing you and they put your social security, they apply you for a car loan, an auto loan right at their terminal. And then they check with like 30 or 40 different underwriting banks and they give you the loan based on that. That is Islamically not allowed. But again, when the financing and the name of the dealership of the car is the same, then Islamically it is okay. And if you have questions on that, write them down. We're going to take questions afterwards, just after we cover a few more things so that we can be well situated and looking at, for example, how we invest our money. Bidnillah. Okay, let's go into stocks. We mentioned this a little bit, but there's a few rules here. And then I'll cover a 401k as well, and other things, as a few others. Okay, number one, we want to make sure that the absence of riba in the investment. That's the first thing you want to look at. So all financials you really just want to stay away from. I know some of them are wealth management firms, but the problem is it's so convoluted with the other stuff. It's just stay away from them. Okay, like the Bank of Americas, the TD Banks, the Chase, all those guys, financial institutions, stay away from them. Number two, the potential for unethical concerns such as gambling or tobacco in the investment mix. So these resorts, okay, resorts, I want to make that very clear. You want to stay away from resorts. May Allah protect us and make us knowledgeable in the religion. We were, and I mentioned this to some people, we were recently at a wake, Azza, and there were some brothers that they were boasting about how much money they were making in the stock market. And let alone, it's not the place to talk about that, but what they were boasting about was investing in casino resorts and how much money they made on it. And the flat out one was one of them boasting about how he made a ton of money investing in Budweiser. So this is obviously against the Sharia, and these people, perhaps they're ignorant and not understanding that the fact that it is impermissible for us to, consume these products, it also makes it impermissible for us to buy and sell them. So keep that in mind as best as you can. Okay, also insurance companies. So you don't want to invest in Geico. You don't want to invest in Liberty Mutual or any of these companies. You might ask why. I will say this, as far as insurance companies, the concept of insurance in Islam is actually okay. The problem we have is how they execute it in modern day financial transactions. So there is a buddy system Islamically where you put in a pool of money, and then if something was to happen to you or a family member, you can withdraw from it. But the idea is that you put it back, right, eventually. And so it's kind of like a pool of money. And a lot of people do these. Some of them, they do jam'iyas and things like that. But that's kind of the idea behind it, where you're, if some crazy life event happened, you're looking to be able to insure that, if you will, have some funds to be able to take care of that. Now, the problem with insurance contracts, there's so much gharar. You sit here and you pay a premium of $1,000 or $2,000 a year, whether that's home insurance, auto insurance. Life insurance is by default absolutely haram. Very, very few exceptions have been given the permissibility for life insurance. And the one that I've seen most frequently given as a fatwa for life insurance is two cases. One, if the job that you're working for automatically includes it, you don't do anything, you don't ask for it, or you don't decline it, it's just included in your job. And then the other one, so that's fine there because they're just giving it to you. And then the other one is the scholar said if a male with a family and his children are living in a country where none of the males of his family, if he passed away, would actually look after his family, then it's okay for him to get life insurance to protect his wife and children in the event that he would die. Because in an Islamic world, if a guy's family was absolutely pathetic and didn't realize that it is their responsibility to look after the wife and their brother's wife and kids, then the Islamic State would take care of them. By the way, to clarify, if you didn't hear that correctly, let me say it again. In Islam, when a guy gets married to a girl, the one who is financially responsible for the wife and the children is the man. Financial responsibility goes on the male. However, if the male passes away, her father is not financially responsible for her. Islamically, his father is. And if his father passed away, then his brothers are financially responsible, those who inherit, right, that are closest to doing that, or his grandfather, his uncle, things like that. So what I'm trying to say is that it goes to show you how important our religion is to learn and benefit from it. Again, so that's the only two times I've seen life insurance. The scholars have allowed it, but again, by default, it is not allowed. So you want to avoid these kind of companies. And that will be very important once we cover 401k, and we're going to be wrapping up a little bit just with a few points. And then the reason I'm just giving you this basis is because I know some of you may have some questions, and those usually take up some time. But nonetheless, if you remember that, then you'll be in good shape, bi'idhnillah. And again, we mentioned impermissible products. Okay, now, different ways and the nature of the contract between the parties involved and whether the substantial omissions exist can result in a dispute between the parties. Listen to this. We mentioned avoiding the 4 prohibitions in a contract, which is riba, gharar, uncertainty, ethical issues, and conditions. Day traders. Some scholars did say being a day trader is impermissible. But interestingly enough, a lot of them said it is not impermissible. And I used to be of the view that they were impermissible until you really look at the Sharia. And again, we said that the default is that is permissibility unless you have something that doesn't allow you to engage in it. And we know that the Prophet said extreme speculation, you're not buying and selling based on, the quality of the product or anything like that, just based on news and things like that, he said is not allowed. Why did some scholars say it is allowed? Because there is a narration where the Prophet sent one of the companions to the marketplace with some money to buy him, some meat. I believe it was a goat or a small goat. And when he came back, he gave him the goat and his money back. And he said, "How did you do this?" He said, "Well, what I did is I was in the marketplace. I negotiated. I bought it for a great deal. The lamb or the goat, and then I'm a pretty good salesman. So what I did, the market value of the goat, because of supply and demand towards the end of the day, it went up. And so I sold it for a profit. Thereby, I made so much. I made the money that of the cost of the goat. So here's your money in the profit, and here's the goat as well." So he wound up pretty much handing him his money back and the goat. Why is this important, this narration? The scholars said because you see, a market can fluctuate in that price fluctuated by 100%. It doubled, right? While the companion was in the marketplace. So they said, if you look, a person who's a day trader, as long as they meet the conditions of not investing in what we mentioned, riba, gharar, ethical issues, the haram products, and any of the impermissible conditions, which we're going to go over. One of those impermissible conditions is options contracts, whether it's puts or calls. We'll explain that in a second, but those are impermissible to invest in. Okay, next, there's 3 categories in investing in the stock market. Number 1, The primary dealings are halal. Their transactions are halal, so they abide by Islamic rules. These companies are rare. But for example, one might say Caribou Coffee. It's a small coffee chain. I believe it's out west in the United States. Believe it or not, 49%, I believe someone said, is owned by Bahrainis, Muslims. And so if you find companies in tier 1, the scholars said it is not permissible to invest in tier 2 companies. So these companies in the stock market, they're broken into 3 categories. Now, tier 1, which is absolutely halal, is rare and very hard to find. It's very, very seldom. Very, very seldom. So tier 2, their primary service is halal, but their transactions are not halal. For example, Apple, their main business is halal, but because of the amount of cash that they have, it is not halal to invest in them. Meaning what? And some scholars said, if you read the AOFI standards, and if you don't know what those are standards that many Islamic PhD, financial PhD imams have put these rules together. This is something we have to study in Sharia. And so what I'm doing is giving you these rules of thumb that they have concluded on. If you had already invested in Apple for two or 3 or 4 years ago, you can leave your position in a hold position until the amount of cash is way higher than, I believe they said, about 1/3. Now, when you see these numbers, I don't want you to put them in stone. These are just guiding principles, right? Because the Prophet ﷺ never said you're allowed to invest in a company that has 1/3 of its business haram. Never said that. Never even came close to saying that, right? But what we do is they're just looking for guidance. They're trying to give you this guidance, all right? And the reason they came up with a third is because in a financial hadith where one of them was donating money, he said, "Ath-thuluth wa-thuluthu kathir," meaning what? They're looked for any way that the Prophet ﷺ gave an indicator of what is a lot. And so even though he wasn't talking about investments, we do have a narration where he's saying a third is a lot. So we know that a third is a big portion. Again, the third rule about investing in a company that does impermissible activity is not allowed. The stronger evidence that they also debated amongst themselves, they said 5%. By the way, 5% isn't a rule anyway, anywhere. But they said the fact that it's 95% halal, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Oh, businessmen, تصدقوا, donate, because very few of your transactions are 100% halal." So they're saying at least we came very close to it. And that actually makes a lot more sense. But again, this 5% rule is not hardcore. So if you were investing in a company and you found that they have 6% of question marks, questionable activity, then it's still okay to invest in them, but we'll show you what to do afterwards. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, and some of the scholars said the reason it is okay to invest in the second category that we just covered is because they said you're removing hardship. If people do not have a means to invest their money in a halal way, saving accounts are haram, so we have to show leniency in a way that they can actually invest and save their money. And Islamically, we're always supposed to be looking to invest our funds and our money. And by the way, if you're getting a student loan from a continuous charity, don't go take it and invest it. Use it for your school. Some people, I've known some people who took out student loans just to try to invest them. So that's deceit. Don't do that, by the way. So I'm sure the shaitan is crossing some people's minds. Anyhow, tier 3, everything is haram. Their primary product is haram. They're haram. The whole company, may Allah protect us, is what they're doing is haram. All banks, insurance, casinos, and some of these companies, I think it's publicly traded, called Porky. I never looked it up, but anyhow. Okay. I do have some rules of thumb about how to invest, but I think I'm over my time. The one thing I will cover for the sake of everyone here is the 401k plans, because I get so many questions about them, and I think every lecture I give in finance winds up coming up in some way, shape, or form. By default, a 401k plan is not permissible unless you know what the plan is investing in. Let me give you an example. Your company may provide you with 20 different categories of plans in which you can invest in. Let me give you an example. Here's one. All right. So someone sent this to me. Someone sent this one to me. All right, VITS. Here it is. Oops, sorry. I'm going to give you a quick example, and then we'll open the floor for questions. Okay, so your company will give you a list of about maybe 20 or 30 funds that you can invest in. The first category one of the categories is called a balanced fund, balanced funds, and they'll give you 15 or 20 options you could choose from the balanced fund. A 401k plan typically involves either a very high commodity, so very focused on stocks and equity. Some of them are balanced, which is what? They invest in bonds and stocks. Here's an important lesson regarding bonds. By default, they are impermissible. They are impermissible. They are interest payments where you are borrowing treasury bills from the government, and they typically pay you out, I believe, twice a year. And it's a guaranteed payment. It is riba, 100% riba. There are some sukuk, which are some Islamic versions of those, but your 401k manager, 99.999% sure are not investing in those Islamic ones. And typically they're not even found in the United States. They're more found in the Middle East. Quick example of a bond that is halal. I believe when the Dubai Abu Dhabi airport was looking to build, they took out bonds and they did a musharaka type of deal where they got investing pools from the people, and then they used that to build the airport. Again, that is a different method. They do a lot of clauses so that Islamically it's permissible. By default, in the United States, investing in bonds is not allowed. Okay, and also shorting stocks is Islamically not allowed. I'll say it again. Shorting stocks is Islamically not allowed. We do not invest in a company with the hope that it fails. And you're not actually investing when you're shorting a stock anyway. I mean, I could explain that process, but because of time, unless it comes up in the questions, I'll answer it. But as a general rule, do not short sale, and call and put options are not allowed, because someone is guaranteed to be losing money and someone is guaranteed to be making money. And the scholars said that this is exactly like the casino, where the call and put options are calculated in such a way that the majority of times it's a gamble. You're not actually investing in the company, but you're quickly betting on these puts and calls on a certain decimal and whether the market will swing in a certain direction or not. Now, people have made a ton of money on options trading and options contracts, and they don't actually wait for them to execute. They sell and buy them before they execute. But nonetheless, I'm going into a lot of terms, but most of you may not even care about these terms. But just remember, options contracts as well as shorting is not allowed. Okay, now your 401k. You get a list from your employer and they say, hey, what 401k do you want to do? And you should try, if you're willing to do a little bit of research, you could actually make some pretty good money. Why do I say this? Because unless your 401k, your company's 401k plan isn't matching, then I would tell you go invest your own 401k. You can open up an IRA, which is an individual retirement account. Okay, you can do it yourself, and you can invest your own money in a halal mutual fund, right? A mutual fund is where there's a group of people who are overlooking the fund and they're investing it in a halal manner. I mentioned these before. Alhamdulillah, I'm invested in them as well, and one of them is called the Azad Mutual Fund, and another one, Ethical Mutual Fund, and the other one is called the what is it, Imanex, which is the Iman Mutual Fund. IMANX, and the other one is Adjex, ADJEX. Adjex, yeah. Okay, so you may get and now again, if your company is not matching your 401k, you're better off doing it on your own. You could set aside some money. There's a cap that you could put in it. Nonetheless, it's pre-taxed, which is great, and you could set that up. And you could call any one of these and go on their websites, Google Islamic Mutual Fund, and you could find a way that you can make money in them. Now, if they are matching, and some of them will match 100% of what you put in. So if you put 5% of your salary in the 401k plan, and let's say you're making $50,000 a year, so you're putting $2,500 in your it's pre-tax, right? In your 401k, your company will put another $2,500 to match you. That is free money. So if you're willing to do a little bit of research, then guess what? You may be able to benefit. So one person sent me their 401k. By the way, don't do this. Don't send me your 401k case, this is somebody extremely close, and not that you guys aren't close to me, even though we're doing virtual anyway. But the last thing I'm going to be doing is reviewing everyone's 401k. What I'm going to tell you is they sent me about 40 401k plans that their company offers. Out of the 40, about 20 of them were automatically haram because they were in the balanced option. Balanced means that usually it's about 50-50 between bonds and stocks. It's less risky, and it's long-term gains of, smaller percentage. It beats a savings account. Nonetheless, those you could automatically throw out. Then there was the other 20, and some of them, for example, one of them was called the Vanguard Institutional Target Retirement 2015 Fund. Okay. So what you have to do is you just take the fund name. There's a website I like to use. It's called marketwatch.com. If you look at it, you could Google it quickly. It's called marketwatch.com. Go into the search bar and start typing, for example, Vanguard Institutional Target Retirement 2015. This is important to know because you guys, I need you to do this and be empowered to do this on your own. Now that you know what to look for, you scroll down, it'll give you the inception date of the fund. Make sure it matches the one that it says on your package so that you know you're looking at the correct fund. Because, for example, for the Vanguard Institutional Target Retirement 2015 fund, there's institutional, there's another 3-4 versions. So this one matches, it's correct. Its inception date is right here. Okay. Where's this guy? So that we know. Was right here. I mean, it's on this page, but I'm probably trying to go through it rather quick. Oh, here. Fund inception date, June 26, 2015. Okay, so it matches what they show on this document. Then what you do is go to holdings, because they don't tell you how they're investing their money right there. What I'm going to do is go to holdings and quickly look on the left-hand section. It says sector allocation. Boom. Right there on the top left, you see, and on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, it says sector allocation. Financials is about 5.76% of their portfolio. So you may be on the safer side here. You might be. Where's the problem? If you look at asset allocation, which is the next column, if you're actually following along with me, it says that their asset allocation, 66% of this fund is in bonds. So automatically you need to throw this out of the window. Automatically. You got to take that and toss it. Here's another. There is one of the funds on here that was an option, was invested in 1.18% in financials. So out of the 40 funds, only one of them was Islamically allowed for him to invest in, and that was a blue chip fund. They were focused mostly on investing in blue chips. So with that note, I want to see if I want to open the floor for any questions. I hope I gave you the process by which you can kind of gauge whether that fund is allowed or not allowed. And if I missed anything which you guys were looking for, just please bring it up in the Q&A. Because there's a lot to cover, obviously, right? It's not just so easy to cover it all in an hour, if you will. If no questions, I get to eat dinner early. I'm only kidding.
All right, Jazakallah khair, Brother Becker. So before we start the Q&A, we have a giveaway from the NJIT MSA. And to participate, you just have to fill out this form and follow the directions on our Instagram post. So make sure you fill out this Google form.
Safe, I'm sorry, but I can't really hear you. You're like breaking up. I don't know. I heard Instagram.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, much better.
All right. Okay, so before we start the Q&A, I just wanted to announce that we're also doing a giveaway on behalf of the NJIT MSA, and we're giving away an iPad. So to win the giveaway, you have to use this QR code and fill out the Google form that comes with it, and then we'll announce the winner at the end, inshallah. And then I'll start with the questions now. Okay. Okay, so the first one is mutual funds. Are they a good idea for young investors like undergraduate, graduate?
I'm sorry, I can't hear. I'm sorry. So maybe if you want to text me the question or post it in the chat, that would be helpful.
Can you see the chat in the right here?
I can pull up the chat on here. Okay, I see somebody posted something. Okay, so what does this say? Mutual funds. Are they a good idea for young investors like undergraduate and graduate students? So the answer I will say is yes, because you have two options when you're looking at your money. Either you keep it in your own bank account, a checking account, which is 0% interest, not a savings account. We mentioned this over and over. Savings accounts are not allowed. And if you think about it, the way that riba works in this country and the way that inflation works in this country, your money always loses its value daily. So Islamically, aside from that, you're encouraged to actually invest your money. So as far as a mutual fund goes, as long as it is a halal one, I would say your consistent investing in a mutual fund will actually deal you better in the long term than the short term. What do I mean by that? If you invest $100 a week in a mutual fund, let's look at this, for example. If I was to pull up, if I went to the same marketwatch.com, right? And I pulled up AJEX, ADJEX. Okay, here we go. And if you look at what we have here, its year-to-date return, is 24%. 24%. So if you quickly opened up Excel, right? And the way that you and you know, maybe one day we could do this with a laptop and I could share my screen, but it's a little too late for that. So if I put $100 a week, right? If I put $100 a week equals this, just to show you, and let's just take quickly, I just scrolled it down to 32 weeks. Okay, so if we said that over this course you invested a total of $5,200, right? 5,200, because it's 52 weeks in a year, 5,200, and it was 1.24. You made $1,500 just by allowing somebody to invest your money, right? 1448, if you will. And it would even be more if you purchased earlier in the stocks. And that's how it keeps on growing. So if you're somebody who's patient and you're not looking for a quick rich way to get rich scheme, if you will, then alhamdulillah, you will be making money, especially if you're in it for the long term. You don't sit there and freak out if it goes down the next day or down the next week. You're in it for the long term. And $100 a week will give you that, inshallah. It's a good investment. It's very smart, especially if it's an Islamic mutual fund. Okay. Let's see what's going on over here. I see. You mentioned that it's impermissible to invest in insurance companies and banks, but is it? What? Let me see something. Hold on. Maybe because I don't think it's coming out clear for me. The chat. It's the thing is coming up. Okay, you mentioned that it's impermissible to invest in insurance companies and banks, but is it? Can you clarify about why investing in Apple is haram? Is this a different country? Is this a different question? But is it what? Do you know what the bottom says? Because
Yeah, those are two different questions.
Can you
hear me?
read for me this one real quick? Because it's overlapping.
Yeah.
The software is making it overlap the question with the second
Yeah,
question.
I can read the question. So the question says, you mentioned that it's impermissible to invest in insurance companies and banks, but is it permissible to work for them in the finance side or or in the tech sector?
Is it permissible to work for them, you said?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So there's a difference of opinion here. And let me quote you, for example, what Amja mentioned about these companies, because personally, I like to quote them. I don't like, personally, the default is you should not be working for them. The default is you should not be working for them. So let me read this quickly for you. Let's see. Okay, so just to clarify, insurance is one of the afflictions of the age in which modern fatwa scholars have already spoken, whether in their role as an individual scholar or at the level of councils and assemblies. There are many differences of types of insurance, some of which are permissible and some of which are prohibited. While some are subject to scholarly differences of opinion, the ruling on working for insurance companies varies according to the judgment of the insurance policies themselves. Whichever of these contracts is valid, it would be permissible to work for their institutions, and whichever contracts are invalid, it would not be permissible to work for them or to even assist them with their contracts. The basic principle regarding insurance, and this is something I mentioned to you guys, is that it is a system based on providing a helpful service, solidarity, mutual responsibility, and charitable assistance. With this meaning and in this context, it is of one of the essential Islamic values when it is restricted in its organization and contracts, as well as the investment of its funds to the rules of Sharia. In fact, it would not be exaggeration to say that providing it in this context and in light of recent developments has become a general communal obligation. Okay, so the basic principle regarding commercial insurance contracts regulated by commercial insurance laws, practice of commercial insurance. I'm just trying to get to the point because I have this copied here. I keep it with me. Okay, so there's social insurance, this. Okay, so there's different types. This is the one that we focus on the most, which is car insurance and things like that. The basic principle is that no commercial insurance is permissible except when required by law or resorted to under conditions of general necessity. Okay, and when this takes place, the exigent need, the darura, working in the field of marketing these contracts or providing any assistance for them is not permissible, except in cases of exigent need or general necessity when it takes its place. Whoever is forced by need to resort to work in this field must also have the intention to leave this line of work as soon as he is able to do so. So I want to make that very clear. They said that only in an extreme dire need you're allowed to work for those companies, and you must continuously be looking elsewhere for a job. Okay. The next question, can you clarify why investing in Apple is haram? What is the problem with the cash reserve? Okay, is that one question? And is the next one another question? Or is this part of the same question? I've chosen a 401k fund that invests in zero. Is that one?
Yeah, that's a question.
They're separate questions, right?
Yeah, okay, so the first question is, can you clarify about why investing in Apple is haram? What is the problem with the cash reserve?
Okay, so the problem is you're not allowed to sell cash for more money. We mentioned this, right? This is one of the things Islamically that the Prophet ﷺ is called ribatul fadl. It's another category of riba. Riba. So if I believe the current ruling on Apple is a hold. So meaning if you already own their stocks, you can own it. If you don't, then you're not allowed to buy it now only because of the amount of cash it has on hand. Why? Because number one, the scholars said we don't know how they're making money with that cash. Don't think that Apple's just keeping it in a 0.02% savings account. They have financial investors who are investing that cash and making money on it and whatnot. And also, you're sitting here investing and buying cash at a profit of cash. This is Islamically not permissible. You cannot buy money to make money, right? That's essentially considered a loan, an impermissible ribawi loan. So, for example, if you come to me, I have cash. You say, I need cash and I'll pay you back more than the cash you gave me. When we are giving out cash, it is seen as a charitable contract, right? The one that is rewarded by Allah, not one that you can make money on money. An exchange is different. So exchanging money is halal as long as the currency differs. So, for example, if I'm giving you Canadian dollars and I'm giving you US dollars and you're giving me Canadian dollars, the amount can differ, and that's not seen as making money on money, although you possibly could make money that way. But nonetheless, money for money in the same value and currency, this would not be permissible. That's the reason. I'm trying to see. The next question says, I've chosen a 401k fund that invests in zero bonds. They are only in Vanguard stock and a very small, I can't see the rest. You see, so that's what these questions keep overlapping. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
well,
I'll read it. So it says, I've chosen a 401k fund that invests in zero bonds. They are only in Vanguard stock and a very small percent is invested into banks. Is this okay if I donate that small amount without seeking reward? Did you catch that?
So sorry about that. Your voice breaks up on my phone, and so If Mirawi is on the call, maybe he could text. Oh, I think he just texted me. Oh, that's what he did. Okay. Here it is here. Can you clarify? Okay, here it is. I've chosen, if you could tell him to text me the next ones, because I have this one here now. I've chosen a 401k fund that invests in zero bonds, and they are only in Vanguard stock, and a very small percent is invested into banks. Is this okay if I donate that small amount without seeking reward? Okay, Jazakallah khair. So, for example, the brother that I was just mentioning to you gave us, about 40 funds to look into, and one of them invested in 1.18% financials. So, what does he do with this 1.18? Does he just invest away and say, "Oh, alhamdulillah, I found it so small, it's nothing"? No. When he takes out, he has to keep this documented. When he takes out he could do this in a few ways. Either annually, he gives away that 1.1% of his, of his 401k, whatever that's equal to. And I say give away, like the brother mentioned, it is not a donation, because Allah Azza wa Jalla said that he only accepts something pure. Allah only accepts something pure, and this is not something pure. So the scholar said you should give that money away to the police department, for roads, for whatever that might benefit the community, but it's not a sadaqah, and you should not give it to an Islamic organization. Okay, so yes, and when you say a very small amount, Jazakallah khair for looking into that. This is something very, very that you took the initiative to do. So that's something very welcomed. So may Allah reward you. Next question. What is the stance on Bitcoin? The scholars have not given a final resolution on Bitcoin. In the last MJA conference, we discussed, and the scholars said it is currently just makruh. And that means it's one of the abominable acts. Why did they say makruh? By default, it would be allowed, by the way, by default. The reason they say makruh is because they said there's nothing tangible there that you actually own. It's all speculative buying based on what there's a demand on some fictitious value of a secured data coin. And they said because of this, it's makruh, it's disliked. And so the blockchain technology, there's nothing wrong with it per se. Very secure, very reliable. But the other thing they also looked at is the users of these platforms. And the majority of the users of these cryptocurrencies are illegal use. Drug transactions, even child slavery, it's all sorts of things like that. So they said stay away from them. And by the way, if you're still looking at Bitcoin, you're quite behind in the investment world. So that was long ago. Anyhow, next question. To my knowledge, an IRA is offered by banks like TD Bank and Bank of America. You mentioned you can do an IRA by themselves. How can it be done steering clear from these big banks? Okay, another confusing topic. So there are brokerage platforms. These brokerage platforms might be owned by TD Bank, like TD Ameritrade, like Fidelity, like Robinhood, or any of these other accounts. What they are, those are just brokerage firms. By you opening up a TD Ameritrade account and an IRA with TD Ameritrade, you are not investing in TD Bank. I want to make that clear. You're just using, that's the equivalent of just opening up a checking account with TD Bank. So don't mix the two. You using their trading platform does not mean you invested in TD Bank. You're only using their trading exchange and trade platform. So TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, Vanguard, whoever you're using, they are just the means, or the vessel in which you're carrying out those transactions. You're not investing in them. Okay, next question. Okay, how should we vet particular stocks for investing? Do you recommend any Muslim apps that offer halal investing in stocks? So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it's not as easy as you think. And that's the reason that I usually recommend most Muslims who are not savvy investors, who are not going to look at all of the different requirements, that to invest in mutual funds, Islamic mutual funds, because those are Muslim investors who know the Sharia, who have a governing board overlooking their investments, okay? And they're telling them, yes, this is allowed, yes, no, this is not allowed. And they carry out their work accordingly. So they're doing the work for you. If you want to do the work yourself, you have to study in-depth Islamic finance. It's not going to work for you to take this webinar for an hour or some online course. You have to be very serious about it, and then you have to study it from beginning to end. There's a lot of clauses and things that, you know, we didn't mention in details. But if you're really into it, you can do it as long as you're willing to put the effort in it. That if you're not, then look at Islamic mutual funds. Okay. Are dividends haram? Absolutely not. Dividends are profit sharing. So if you don't like your dividends, I'll give you my phone number and you could send them to me. Okay. Next question. I have a used car from a used car dealership in which I am paying interest in monthly. I can't afford to pay off the entire interest amount or the car amount at the moment. See, I know what ATM, by the way, means now. I'm in with the times. They wrote ATM. Okay. Is there anything I could do to possibly lower the rate, or should I just continue paying off my vehicle? What you want to do is, because you're engaged in a haram loan, maybe your circumstance allowed for you to have that. I don't know. I don't know who you consulted or who you didn't consult. Nonetheless, you're already in this situation. Yani, the waka, what you're involved in. So the best thing you could possibly do is try your best to pay off the loan as quickly as possible. So make a little bit of extra payments here and there if you can, and get rid of that loan as soon as you possibly can. Wallahu alam. But no, you don't have to sell the car or anything like that. But yani, and it also requires tawbah. This is a major sin, by the way. I don't like to just simply brush it off as something small. So it is a major sin. May Allah protect us. A lot of us, we fall into these things not realizing them. But again, make a lot of tawbah. Make a deal with Allah. You'll never go back to that, and inshallah you'll be more educated in the future decisions you make, and don't go back to that. Okay, a few more questions we got here. Are RSUs offered by your employer halal? They are planning to IPO soon. So would waiting to sell after the cool down be allowed? Are you talking if this person who asked the question on RSUs, are you talking about restricted stocks? Okay, text in the group, in the chat or whatever, because some of them are allowed. Okay, we'll come back to that question. Are apps like Zoya and Islamically for stock vetting accurate? I have to look into them. I don't know. I have to look into those. First I'm hearing of them. No, next question. What loans are available to buy real estate that are halal, especially in a place that has expensive housing like Silicon Valley? Okay, so the problem we have, for example, with home loans, I'll say this to make it very easy. All of the Islamic banks that are claiming to be Islamically Sharia compliant in the United States, every single one of them has problems. Every one of them, hands down, except one, which is Amin Housing. Again, that's called Amin Housing in California. So for somebody who's actually quoting Silicon Valley in California, believe it or not, you can actually get a halal loan to buy a house in Silicon Valley from Amin Housing. They only operate in California, which is the unfortunate part for us living in Jersey. Okay. Other than that, pool your money together. You don't have to. I know everybody wants to make and flip money, their homes so fast, and they want to make money all on their own. But you have to understand, you have to start somewhere small. Join a jam'iyah, maybe several ones. Like, for example, I know some people, they join a jam'iyah where they pay $1,000 a month, and every, 2 years or 3 years, I don't know what the details are of it, they get a $50,000 payment, right? And it's just cycling money. They're essentially saving it for you, and they give it to you as a lump sum once it's your turn. And once you get a nice $50,000 amount, if there's a handful of you doing that, so everybody's part of different jam'iyat, you guys can then buy a house by pooling your money, right? And then you're paying back a halal method. I know people who did this. So let me give you an example. Let's take 5 individuals who are each part of 5 different $50,000 jam'iyas. So they pay some a monthly amount, $1,000 a month or whatever. And when it's their turn, they get $50,000. So if they took that $50,000, put it to the side, once all of them get their $50,000 payment, they sit there and they could buy a $250,000 property, do some work in it, flip it, and make money. You have to start somewhere. Everyone is thinking that, oh, I need a $250,000 loan, a $500,000 loan now so I could flip this property. By the way, this is the worst time to buy real estate if you haven't even realized that or not. Worst time to buy real estate. So, I used to get a lot more real estate questions, and rightfully so, that, there was only one. But again, that is the best way. If you're looking to get real estate on yourself for yourself, then yeah, okay. So RSU, the person clarified. But anyhow, I'll come to it now. The real estate, the majority of them have problems in their contracts, and so you do need to steer clear of them, unless it is for yourself. It is for your family. Some of the scholars gave the fatwa that using some guidance residential, some of them said it's okay if it is a need, and it's the only way you can get a house, and it's for the one you're going to live in. Okay, so again, that's for a need, and that's a case-by-case basis. You should look into that, but this is for investing. Okay. Okay, so regarding the RSUs, let's ask this again. Are RSUs offered by your employer halal, restricted stock units? The answer is yes, they are. And there's a very important reason why they are. Because you work for the employer. If you did not work for the employer, then no, they are not. And why do we say that? Because remember when we first covered a person putting in effort, the fact that you work for the company, you're putting effort in. So whether you get a discounted stock plan, some companies will give you the ability to buy a stock every single day up to, call it, let's say $10,000 a year at a 15% discount. This is halal because you work for the company and you're putting in effort to make the company money. And same thing with a restricted stock. The fact that they're giving to you in a discount or whatever, and typically they have a long time before they get vested. So there's a lot of restrictions on them that, if it's not vested, you don't technically own it yet. The goal is that you're working very hard for the company and that you're there long term. That's typically why they would offer a restricted stock to their employees, and they're not usually there's usually no problem with them. Okay, is it permissible to invest in companies who owe money to banks but continue to borrow money from them? Okay, so that's a good question, and that's the debt ratio. But generally, it is not okay. However, everyone is in debt right now after the last financial crisis just hit us, the recession. So keep that in mind. But again, the one who knows how to vet those out is a person who is Islamically savvy on the debt ratios and whatnot. If you're doing this on your own, then just be very careful. If you see that the debt is extremely high, shy away from it, invest in something else. For the exception on life insurance, does having an older teenage male son disqualify this exception? Under the majority of the scholars, if the ones that I've studied with, if this person understands their responsibility, right? This older son, this older male, whoever he is, the male, again, from the husband side, the wife side is not responsible in the case of death for financial reasons. So if he's aware that he's financially responsible for his brother's wife and children, he understands that, then no, it is not permissible. Some scholars said that when this person must be, if he's an alcoholic or he's a druggie or he's just some guy who can't get his life together, some have allowed it for those people. Some have allowed it for those people. Again, everybody should understand this. Somebody asked the question, is Forex halal? I personally don't like that trading platform because the amount of speculation that's involved in it. But believe it or not, a lot of the scholars have said it is permissible. It is permissible. Why is it a problem? Why did a lot of scholars say it's impermissible? Forex, if you don't know what that is, that's money exchange online. They said because the Prophet ﷺ specifically said an exchange of money for money, even if they're of different values like gold and silver, you must take place al-yadu bil-yad, meaning it must take place immediately. Immediately. You cannot delay. I can't take your dollars today and then say, okay, come tomorrow and I'll give you I'll give you Canadian dollars. I have to do it immediately. The Maliki school has allowed 3 days of delaying the delivery of one of the sides. Why? They said because if a person is coming from out of town and they have an amount of money that they wanted to exchange, not everybody is carrying this great amount of money where that person needs to engage in the marketplace to have that currency. So they may take it as security and then go and get the money, because they used to hide it in places back then. So they allowed for up to 3 days in one of their fatwa, and another one 2 days. So from this, they said, because the Malikis allowed 2 or 3 days of the exchange, of the delay in transfer, the delivery, then foreign exchange. See, the problem with Forex is that you can, the delivery when you cash out is delayed. So you don't get your money immediately. There's a waiting period. And because of that waiting period, if you follow the authentic, like down to the core of what the Prophet ﷺ statement said, and the majority of scholars, which would be the other 3 madhahib, then it is impermissible. If you follow some of the modern fiqh councils where they said because of the need, there's no other way to truly exchange money. And I would even challenge that statement, because the fact that you're buying the Chinese yen or the Canadian dollar or the, the British pound, I would argue you're not doing that to actually use the currency. You're doing, and you're actually doing it to make money. But again, besides the point, they said that that is the easiest way to allow people to exchange their money. So some scholars have allowed it. Some scholars have allowed it from the Maliki method, from the Maliki school of thought. Okay. How would a jam'iyah work if everyone is similar age group friends and would want their turn share? No, that's not how a jam'iyah works. Let me ask the question again. How would a jam'iyah work if everyone is similar age group of friends and would want their turn, their share at the same time? That is not how it works. How it works is you guys agree upon a monthly amount. The amount of people then take the money and put it together, and they all wait until it reaches a certain amount. Okay, and that amount is where it can be taken from the jam'iyah enough so that the second person who takes has the exact amount to take. And the order of the people that they take their turn is usually drawn from a hat. Lots. You cast lots, and it's fair that way. It's not by age. It's not by how much you contributed or anything like that. It's by lots. It's by casting lots, meaning something very random, pulling your name out of a hat. It's the only fair way to do it. Okay. I don't see any other questions. I don't know, Mirawi, Muhammad, or Saif, if you guys have anything. I don't. I'll check the chat here, but I don't see anything. Everyone similar. Oh, that was the last question. Okay. I don't hear you, Muhammad. I think your mic is muted.
Can you hear me now?
Unless it's me. Oh, yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay.
I think you were muted before.
Okay. Saif, do we have any other questions coming in?
I think that was the last of them. So we can, right now we're just gonna wait for the results for the giveaway.
Sure.
Brother Becker, if you want to conclude with anything. Actually, one of the questions that somebody did ask was, what are your, you said that you have a rule of thumb when you're investing. Could you just share that with us?
I said I have a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember saying that, but maybe. I'm sorry. I don't remember saying that. Personally, I used to tell people things that I invested in, unless it's something that's much less risky, like for example, like the mutual funds. They're so much less risky than single commodities or stocks. And I'll tell you why, because not everyone is as savvy as understanding when you should sell and when you should buy. And for that reason, I saw some people lose quite a bit of money because they just listen to other people. And unfortunately, that's not somebody who should be investing on their own. If you're somebody who is not really that well versed, then you can still invest, alhamdulillah. But I would say invest in a mutual fund. And it's because you have a mutual fund, they're doing the work for you, folks. And if you don't know that, then you can look up these mutual funds. Once you buy into them, you get something called a prospectus. They'll actually show you every single company that they've invested in. every single company they've invested in. And you could look down, and maybe for you, obviously those are Islamically approved companies because the board, the Islamic Sharia board for that mutual fund approved them. So if you wanted to, if you thought, for example, I wish they owned more Tesla, I'm just making it up. They own 5% of their portfolio is Tesla shares. You see Tesla on there, like, oh, that's a halal company I can invest in. So I wanted to take a couple, whatever you do. Again, there is no one easy way of doing it. You have to be willing to put in the effort. The one thing I will tell you is, and leave off with, is three things, because a lot of people think that it's all about your savviness and your skill in making money. Allah Azza wa Jal teaches us that we are the people of the process. I want you to never forget that. We are the people of the process, and then we tawakkul, and then we have the reliance and God consciousness of Allah. So there's three things I just want to tell you about regarding investing. Okay, the number one is what I just mentioned in tawakkul of Allah, and that is if you were to put your trust in Allah the way that He deserves, like the Prophet ﷺ, he said, you would be provided with you would be provided for as the birds are provided for, the Prophet ﷺ said. Then leave at the beginning of the day famished, and then return at the end of the day full. That's the people who have tawakkul on Allah. Allah will provide for you. And some of the interesting things, I found that birds eat like 50 times their weight or some insane amount. The point is people who have true tawakkul in Allah. The second is actually seeking forgiveness and repentance. Never forget that a person who seeks forgiveness and repentance from Allah, Allah Azza wa Jal will send down an abundance for them. Like he mentioned in Surah Nuh, where he said that whoever makes istighfar to Allah, Allah will provide for them in a great amount. And the third is be thankful to Allah. Be thankful to Allah. And then Allah Azza wa Jal even told us in Surah Ibrahim that if you're thankful to Him, He'll give you more. But if you're thankless, if you're someone who's not thankful, then His punishment is terrible indeed. And we tend to forget these principles that, no matter what you invest or do not invest, that all of this is ultimately up to Allah. Your job is to look for these halal investments, and you have to remember that if this is written for you to make money in it, you will, and if not, it is still good for you regardless. But again, you have to do your part, and never forget that ultimately Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who's providing for you, or your friend who pulled up their app and showed you that they made 5 or 10 or whatever thousands of dollars. Again, it is only that Allah Azza wa Jal has ordained that. Never ever forget that, whether you make or whether you lose money. Allahu Alam.
Jazakallah khair, Bakr. We appreciate it as always. Alhamdulillah. We've had you twice now, and I hope to have you many more times. It just seems like the topic is always so big, and we don't have enough time. But hopefully the next time, inshallah, we can chip away more at this big topic. But Jazakallah khair. I appreciate you taking the time.
Wa iyyakum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. So somebody sent a question about ACC and how we select for loans. So I touched on it briefly, like in the beginning when I was babbling about how ACC works and all that stuff. But just to give like a short answer to that question, because I don't want that person to not apply because we didn't answer it. You should apply, first of all, regardless of whether or not you feel you have a competitive application. Like I said, we're still new as an organization. We don't have that many funds. So don't expect that everybody who applies is going to get a loan. Quite the contrary. That's why we're trying to get awareness about ACC New Jersey, and we're trying to fundraise. Not in this event, but just throughout the year in general, we're trying to raise funds so that we can provide more loans. But we select the loans like I explained, based on merit, location, the community service, some demonstration of interest in learning the Deen of Islam or the Islamic sciences in some structured way, whether a class, once a week class, you attend monthly seminars, you study with a local scholar, or you just are part of a halaqah group, or you just like to read certain, whatever it is, right? Just some demonstration of striving to increase your Islamic knowledge. And then just tawakkul ala Allah and just apply otherwise. Number one criteria, like I said, for us, for ACC in general, is the communities that provide the most funds get the most loans approved. And that is the overarching kind of umbrella criterion. So inshallah, if we can get more funds, that will only benefit, inshallah, all the students to help them get get the loans. So Saif, if you want to go ahead and wrap up, I know NJIT MSA had like a giveaway, so if you want to go ahead and
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. So the winner for the NJIT MSA giveaway is Humaira Mansouri. So congratulations, Humaira. Everybody, congratulate her. It's well deserved. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up the event. Jazakumullah khairan for attending, and make sure to spread the word about a continuous charity with everybody in your community, so that we can help more Muslims, attain higher education in a halal way. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam. See you guys. Go to the website, please. Link is on the screen. Assalamu alaikum.